What is up, rockers of the Rock Nation? This is your fellow rocker here, ex-Rockerman X, and I am back with, well, after at 3 o'clock in the morning, which I really don't care. I watched the episode late again because reasons, and I like watching these episodes late compared to actually watching it live, because some reason episodes seem a little bit better than what they do when they're premiered, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I am back with my review series of The Walking Dead, and this is for Episode 10 of Season 5, self-titled Them. Or at least I believe is what it's called. If not, then I apologize. But this episode, I will say, was actually a good episode again, like last episode, it being an emotional mindfuck. This is more just a good episode on emotional levels, and it really makes you think about as the apocalypse itself, really, if you think about it, because this episode really shows how it shows our guys and girls, Rick and the group, how it really shows for them to survive, and how it is to survive in the apocalypse, how hard it can be at times, because sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. But with this episode, it's been, and yes, I am playing with our band, but this episode, it's been about 3 weeks since Atlanta. Well, about 21 days. It was 17 days between time Beth died and last episode. So yeah, and Rick said about 3 weeks, about 21 days, about 3 weeks since Atlanta. And this kind of shows how fucked up the team is, how bad it is. And it makes you wonder if they would have stayed with the police, like, not Dawn, since she was obviously died, but the rest of them, how things would turn out for me. I thought about this, and I wonder how things would be different. But, I don't know. But, at the beginning of the episode, we pretty much see how bad off the group really is. I mean, Maggie's distraught over the loss of Beth, still, for about 3 weeks, which is understandable, because she doesn't have anyone, Andrea left, I think. It was Andrea. She doesn't have her father left. She for sure doesn't have Beth left. All she has is her husband Glenn and the rest. But with Maggie being distraught, Daryl foraging literally for worms, or even Sasha hunting for food, I'm assuming, or water or whatever, I'm not sure what it is. And even from the beginning, you can see how near death the group possibly is from this time out. And it really shows how far that they had to sink in order to survive from the group of dogs that were about ready to attack them. They had to kill them and eat them. Which, don't worry, guys, no dogs are harmed to making it of the show, but you get my point. It's just like, holy fuck. I about got grossed out during that scene, but it was a good ass scene because it's an apocalypse, and you have to basically survive on whatever you have to survive on. Minus the fact that I want to give the fact about the water, and I can understand why they didn't trust the water, but at the same time, I would say, like, as I said, I'm talking, it's Eugene, let him test it out. No, but seriously. So that makes sense. You do about anything to survive, even if that's not drinking water that you don't trust or whatever. And along with this, we also see how weak the group is. How they're walking along the road, and how weak they possibly are. I mean, you saw the plan of Rick's at the bridge walker scene where there was like sidestepping him, throwing him down the ravine. Which was a good plan that wouldn't endanger him, and I agreed with that plan more than what Sasha did. And of course, what Sasha did is she went in with brute force and started attacking the walkers. Now, as Maggie said, or Lauren, I think that's her real name on Talking Dead, that in a way, yes, it actually did bring the group back to life, kicking their survival instincts back in where they need to be. But at the same time, with Sasha doing irrational situations it's just that she endangered the group there. And you see how the mindset of the group really is. It's just, you really start to wonder how this is going. This episode, like I said, I went for emotional levels for all the group. And then through here, too, we get a glimpse of the people's thought process. Rick saying, and I quote, that we are the Walking Dead, which kind of is a good thing, because Rick, during this scene, Rick never really shows personal information, and I can understand why, but this is a nice side of Rick that we see here with the story, and that's something, even though Daryl, he's like, we're not like them. In a way, I see where Rick's better point of view, because you have to pretend you're dead in order to survive. You think negative and positive stuff happens, at least in my experience. Because I've thought negative and positive stuff happens, and when I think positive, negative stuff happens. I don't know why, it's just that's how my experience goes, so I can think about that. And because RP roleplay, zombie apocalypse stuff all the time. Well, not all the time, but sometimes. And different stuff as well, so it's just how my mindset is, and I can really see where this is coming from. And if I could ever be on the show as a cast member, whether it be as not really a walker, but as some sort of cast member, even if I died that episode, I'd be like, yeah, I'd take on the role. But then, and you also see Michonne and her thought process, how she's taking over the role of Tyrese, at least a little bit, and not completely. Again, I already mentioned how Sasha, Noah. Now, you don't see much of Noah in this episode, like twice, if you count my favorite scene, or not necessarily my favorite scene, but just the most intense scene. And I just realized I skipped a lot. But Noah, though, in a way, I think this is speaking of Sasha and Tyrese, that he does feel guilty about Tyrese's death in a way, because Tyrese is trying to help him. Now, it's understandable why, but still, you get my point. And Noah, I like Noah as a character, I really do. That's about all I gotta say. And now, backing up a little bit to Glenn and Maggie. Now, Glenn, in a way, she's losing her religious side and basically telling Gabriel off, and he gets a harsh end. And Gabriel, to me, and before I go on Maggie, for me, Gabriel, too, at this point, he isn't, where you can tell he's losing a religious too and turning his back against God and all that. And, of course, when it starts raining, he says, I'm sorry, Father, or whatever. Talking to God, of course. But I feel like, most people will probably disagree with him. I feel like Gabriel is a good person to trust, because where he is religious and he's not necessarily sinful, except for the one thing we know he did about leaving his people outside, but you get my point. But back with Maggie, she is slowly coming to cope in my notes, but she's slowly coping with Beth's, and there's dogs barking, but I feel like she's slowly coping with Beth's death, from the walker in the trunk she's seen that looks oddly similar to Beth, or the one walker in the barn. So she's being forced to cope with this, and it's coming off pretty good, I will say. And I kind of like, and then Glenn, of course, is there by her side, that he may be going down a dark path himself, but in reality, he's still there to help protect the group and help Maggie and protect her and everyone else. Easily enough, Glenn, at this point, is not the same person he was, but he's still, in a way, the same person. We know what guys are trying to say. He's not the same person he was, but he's also the same person he was. He's still there for the group. He's still there for his wife. He's still there for his wife, aka Maggie. He's still there for himself. But with him going down a dark path and him, you guys should know what I'm trying to say. In this episode, like I said, just emotional levels for everyone. Is everyone coming to cope with everything is really a good episode. And here we have the bond, or the slight bond between Carol, and Daryl. And you can even tell how, from what I can tell, the rest of this season, at least, is going to be a hard on Daryl for losing hard on Daryl because he's still trying to cope with the loss of Beth as well. And he's burning himself with the cigarette, stuff like that. And you just wonder, how is he going to fully cope with it? I mean, because if I could pick, because here's the thing, I've always was wondering, and I wondered this too, if Beth would have survived, if at some point in the series would Daryl and Beth be together, or I wonder. But then at this point too, where you have Carol kissing Daryl, so where of course like a gateway kiss, but she kissed Daryl's forehead, help consoling him, helping him, makes you wonder now if they're not going to get together. But from my point of view, in a way, it's like a mother-son thing, because Carol to me is more like a sort of a mother figure to Daryl. But at the same time, you still wonder if they're going to get together or not too. Now that Beth is dead, that's the two ships people had in the show, was Beth and Daryl or Carol and Daryl. So you just wonder. And of course, with Daryl going off burning himself, he finds this barn, and when he's back with the group, there's a shed of hope. With it starting to rain, even though it's a storm, of them trying to get water, stuff like that. And of course, this leads to Daryl to go to the barn, to lead the group to the barn. And this scene, they're all sitting there talking by a fire. Someone's asleep. Someone's over there talking by the fire, where this is where Eric says, we are the Walking Dead, stuff like that. And this is where the most intense scene happens. But the funny thing is, with this scene, this was like the most intense part. It's just when the walkers not really attack the barn, but start walking towards the barn during the storm, and everyone have to make sure they don't have to bust in. It started with like Daryl to Maggie, I think to Glenn, to everyone else, and of course Gabriel was the last person to join this group, and of course one of the last people. I think Carl was technically the last one, since he had Judith. But when I saw this scene after Maggie woke up, I honestly thought it was just a nightmare of her dream. Because this makes sense on my thought process, where I think she was dreaming. Because where everybody's trying to hold the barn door open, and at the farm, Herschel's farm, y'all know that, what happened there with the walkers in it. And it just makes sense for that to sort of happen, as if it was a nightmare or something. But you don't know for sure until you see her wake up, and Daryl's up, he hasn't slept, he's just sitting there awake, and then of course Maggie goes and wakes up Sasha, and they go off, and you see everything happening. And you sort of wonder, with the rain that happened, and with all the trees that fell down around the barn, and the walkers crushed, still alive but crushed, you wonder if I'm not going to say all of them, but at that moment, during these times, that they're meant to survive. Even if some of them question whether they should be surviving, you wonder even though if they wonder if they should be surviving, they don't want to deal with it anymore, kind of makes you wonder that they're meant to survive, with all the, whether you want to call it divine intervention, or sheer luck, or chance, or hope, or whatever, makes you wonder there if they're meant to survive. And I'm going to say at this point, yes they are, because it started raining when they needed rain. It started, you said, the barn scene, all the carnage around them, nothing hit the storm, nothing hit the barn per se, just all in the walkers helping him out. And of course, with this end, when Maggie and Sasha walk to that little shed, walk to where they do, and they get that little glimpse of humanity, and at the same time, it's like Maggie helped Sasha out of this place where she was coping, because she was like really, you know what I'm saying? Sasha wouldn't listen to Michonne or anyone. And again, like I said, Michonne's oh, excuse me, has like a Tyrese now sense to her, but we see this person, and his name's Aaron, however you spell it. There's different ways to spell Aaron, but... And as a good point to make on The Talking Dead, and I was thinking this too, he's too clean. And in a way, he's just a polite cannibal. Simple as that. He's not a hipster cannibal, just a polite cannibal. No, but seriously. You wonder who he is, and what... Most of all, what I really wondered is, how did he know Rick? And after he knew Rick, what group is he from they've met before? Whether it be leftover the termite people that survived, I don't know. Whether it be... I don't know who else. I'm just saying. But it makes you wonder. And I got my mic out, fell, because I about kicked it. But you wonder who this person is that knows Rick, saw the group, and wants to, quote unquote, help him in a way, I guess you could say. But we all know he's probably not, because in this world, like I said, you can't trust anybody, and it's nearly impossible to trust people, especially when they're too clean. That's what I want to know. And the last thing, though, I want to say that person you can't trust. Especially after we're seeing the previews for next episode and stuff like that. You know. But one last thing with this episode, too, or not this episode, but something I want to bring up, too, is when will we see Morgan catch up to the group? Because every so often, not lately, but before the mid-season finale, they've teased Morgan coming in and like following him, stuff like that. And I wonder when he's going to catch the group. I'm assuming it's either going to be next season, or it's going to be like the season finale, and they're like going to cut it off before they show his face, just as a horrible cliffhanger. Because, you know, the show's good for cliffhangers. But overall, like I said, this episode was a really good episode on emotional levels, at least. And just showing what the world's like and how, because if nobody has ever watched an episode of The Walking Dead, and for some reason they just got into it like tonight, would be a good episode to get into, because it would show more how hard life would be of surviving compared to some of the past seasons, because they're at a low point, like a real low point. But that's how I see it. But overall, this episode, I will say, it might not be a 5-star episode, but it's close to a 5-star episode. That's really all, guys. That's my legit rating for it. Almost about a 4 point something out of 5 stars. That's basically what my official rating, because I don't know exactly how to rate this episode. But because last time I gave it a 5-star rating, I give all these episodes like 5-star ratings. I'm trying not to give complete 5-star ratings, but I would say probably about if I had to give it a legit rating, I'm gonna say about 4.6, 4.7 maybe. I'm just going to say that, but overall, it was a damn good episode. Because for me, my episodes, I'm more of the action guy when it comes to Walking Dead, like the drama, stuff like that. And this episode, there wasn't necessarily drama, per se, I'm more about the group versus group stuff, you know. It just, you know, I know it's not going to happen quite often in a real apocalypse, but still, it actually might be maybe a 4.8 at least, this episode out of 5 stars, but, you know. I will say, like I said, this episode was a damn good episode, and overall, that's really all I gotta say about it, because just this episode, emotional-wise, was damn good. But yeah, this is my review for this episode of The Walking Dead, and until next time, rockers, live free and rock.